Member of the House Democratic Leadership, Majority Whip James Clyburn of South Carolina. I was going to say Jim Clyburn. They have James in the prompter. I've never known you as James, Jim. So, Jim, let's not just talk about the Supreme Court decision, which really wasn't much of a surprise, given how the Roberts Court has ruled on state regulations of voting. But what's the remedy to it? When can Democrats get together and figure out a way to pass the voting rights bill that obviously John Lewis and you and so many others have championed for so long?
Well, thank you very much for having me, Joe. I've always said, Joseph, look, what we're seeing here is just another indication of why Congress needs to act. You may recall in Chevy v. Holder, Roberts said to us that he thought things were outdated. We should update that formula, and we are doing that. And I think that we ought to go back to the Senate, get H.R. 1 passed. This is an indication as to why we should take H.R. 4. And I've been advocating for some time now. The so-called pre-clearance portion of H.R. 4 could very well be folded into S1. And S1 would then be exactly what we need in order to move forward. And I would hope that the Senate will do that.
Well, and so do you have any intel that they may be moving closer to that? Of course, you are right. Chief Justice Roberts said several years ago that the Congress needed to step forward and update the Voting Rights Act. Isn't this something that can unite all 50 Democrats in the Senate?
I think so, but I think we needed something like this in order for some of my friends in the Senate to understand how egregious these laws are. How do you say to a person who moved into another precinct, and you don't think about going down and changing your voter registration? You present your license plate, it's different from your address, and then all of a sudden your vote gets thrown out. Not even a provisional ballot. Here in South Carolina, you let you vote provisionally until we find who you are. So I think the Senate needs to take a hard look at this decision and then update its thinking on whether or not we should move forward with H.R. 1. H.R. 1 is more critical today than it was 2 days ago.
And we're going to continue talking about this Supreme Court ruling with Nina Totenberg in a minute. But, Jim, I want to move to the midterms coming up next year. You made news earlier this week, I think it was, when you endorsed a candidate who was running against a Bernie Sanders-backed candidate. And you said that in doing so, you're just really focused on getting the most electable candidates in there, so the Democrats can maintain control of the majority. Talk about that.
Well, Joe, I often hear people telling me who is progressive, who is not a progressive, who's a liberal, who is conservative. My father was one of the most conservative people I ever met, but he was a minister. He never asked his congregation to give conservatively. He always asked them to give liberally. And there's got to be a balance in all of this. We've got to know that sometimes you are conservative, sometimes you are liberal. It all depends upon what the issues are. So we've got to get candidates that can really appeal to the American people on a broad basis. And I support people that I've worked with. And I do believe that the young lady there, Shontel Brown, out there in Ohio, I just think that she's an outstanding candidate. She asked for my support, and I give it.
Gene Robinson's with us and has a question for you, Jim. Gene.
Jim, let's talk a bit about the slim majority in the House that Democrats have right now. Historically, Democrats stand to lose seats in the midterm election. How do you intend to buck history, if indeed you can next year? And what makes you think that you can do that?
Well, Jen, you know that I always say, calling upon history, that anything that's happened before can happen again. We bucked history before. You may recall it was our performance against Newt Gingrich that ran Newt Gingrich out of town. We plan to do the same thing next year as it relates to next year's elections. I do believe we're going to have good candidates. We have a lot of good candidates. I just endorsed one. And I think that we are going to hold on to our majority in the House. And I really think we're going to increase our numbers in the Senate because we've got good candidates. We're going to run the kind of campaign that meets with the acceptance of the vast majority of the American people. And I think we'll do well.
Yeah, Jim, this weekend is obviously, we're going to be celebrating as a nation the 4th of July. And you have given so much of your life to this country and to actually, and you have fought hard and suffered and kept fighting to make sure that this country moved closer to the promises of the Declaration of Independence. You and Gene both from South Carolina, both of you in different stages saw the sting of segregation. I'm just curious, with the last year behind us and with us looking at some of the challenges that are in front of us, what are your thoughts? What will you be thinking? How will you be celebrating the 4th of July this weekend?
I'm going to celebrate it very quietly with friends, and I'm going to do it on the 4th. And I've already organized the day for Sunday as to how I'm going to celebrate. But I'm also going to be reflecting on what this country is all about. I've said time and time again, this is a great country. It's not in need of being made great. It is great. What we've got to do is make this country's greatness accessible and affordable for all of its citizens. And that's what I try to do every day. On January 6th, this country was under threat of going down the tubes. We survived January 6th. But the question is, can we sustain that survival? And that now we're being put to the test. And that's why I'm so pleased to see Nancy Pelosi appoint this committee that Bennet Thompson is going to chair to get to the bottom of not just what happened on January 6th, but why did that happen? Who are the players in all of this? We've seen, 500 arrests or near 500 arrests? We need to find out exactly what motivated these people, who was behind all of this, who was funding this insurrection. This we've got to get to the bottom of, or we run the risk of losing this country. All great countries come or tested, and we have to make sure that we can pass the test. Rome didn't. I think we should, and we can.
Well said, Congressman. It's Willie Geist. Good to see you this morning. So many people in this country want to know exactly what happened on January 6th. We've been talking for the last couple of days about the New York Times piece of journalism, this video essay of 40 minutes that shows exactly what happened that day. And yet so many of your colleagues on the Republican side want to turn and walk away and not look into what happened on January 6th, perhaps because what it might say about them, at the very least, what it says about the man they follow to the ends of the earth in Donald Trump. So what do you say to your Republican colleagues, many of whom have your respect and many of whom I know you respect? What do you say to them about January 6th? What do you say about the importance of looking at it?
I say to them, those of us who think about the future will think about our children, our grandchildren, and all other children similarly situated. And we would think about what our parents and forebears left to us, and whether or not we are going to be good stewards, and whether or not we will lay the foundations that are necessary for our children and grandchildren to continue this pursuit of perfection. That's what this country is all about. We are in pursuit of a more perfect union. We aren't perfect. We'll never be perfect, but we must always be in pursuit of that perfection. Our forebears made significant sacrifices for us. Every time I think about what my parents went through and look at my children and my grandchildren, I see in them the responsibility that I have to the future. And so I would say to my colleague, just think about what you want your children and grandchildren to have 25, 50 years from now, and conduct yourself accordingly. I do not believe that any of them will want to see their children confront what we confronted on January 6th. And the only way you get beyond that is to find out why, find out how, and find out who. And then let's move forward.
Congressman Jim Clyburn, as a son of the South, I thank you. As an American, I thank you. And as a friend, let me just say every day, I'm so proud of all you've done to make your children and grandchildren's futures brighter, and mine and everybody else's brighter. Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.